guys and gals, Nary here from Drake Wayne Gaming, and something on Twitter, the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you with the Let's Play episode of A Fall from Grace. So y'all, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm chain, you are up, and let's go. Alrighty. Cedric's eyes widened in surprise. Aye, my father was a farmer until one day everyone in his village lost their homes. Some rich bastard decided he wanted to build a huge garden for his mansion, and the town was simply in his way. My father enlisted in the army, penniless as he was, and went over to Prussia to fight for the king. He came back just as penniless and turned to banditry soon after. He was a good man and deserved none of what he went through. The coyote was rather puzzled as to why Blake had begun sharing his life story then and there. The Doberman really didn't seem the type to do such a thing. He inquired cautiously, "Why are you telling me this?" "It saves time." "What?" "You told us your life story earlier. It's just a matter of time before we all had to do so as well. I thought I'd just get it over with and done now." Cedric couldn't help but smile at Blake's no-nonsense attitude. "Does the uniform you're wearing belong to your father, then?" "Aye, he wore this during his army days. It was the only time in his life he felt accepted among his comrades. And now it's all I have left to remember him by." Blake straightened up, snapping out of his thoughts. "Now go find Vic, and let him know how much he means to you." Cedric began to get up, but froze as the meaning of those words hit him. God, even Blake had assumed the two were a couple. "We're not..." "Sure you're not. Off with you, rich kid." Half an hour later, a makeshift tent had finally been set up for Cedric and Victor. As Coyote picked up the sack holding his clothes and walked in its direction, he marveled at how spacious the others had managed to make the interior. He sat himself down on the soft and warm blanket that had been laid on the ground. As he looked up again, he noticed the familiar shape of Victor heading his way. My, these are some fancy sleeping headquarters, my dear." "I'm really impressed. They certainly don't hold back on making sure their guests are comfortable." "They're all true gentlemen at heart." Victor paused, contemplating. "Well, most of them." The fox slowly sat down beside him. "How are you feeling now?" "I'm holding up well. It's been a very long day, but I'm not sleepy just yet. I might keep myself awake a little while longer." "That's good to hear, because I have a few important subjects I need to discuss with you." "Oh?" The fox laughed nervously as he scratched the back of his neck. "Don't worry, it's nothing dramatic. It's just, I spoke to Dion about our current situation earlier, and..." Victor seemed to hesitate. "We think you should join the masquerade." Cedric's ears perked up at this unexpected statement. But I... "Let me explain. I'm still one of them, even though we haven't crossed paths in over a year. This wouldn't mean you'd be forced to stay with them forever, but becoming a member of the gang would help you gain the experience you need to become a skilled highwayman. And this is only if you want to, of course. You're absolutely free to say no. Take some time to think about this, even a few days if need be." The coyote didn't speak for at least half a minute, completely wrapped up in thought as he witnessed visions of a possible future life pass before him. So, this appeared to be yet another tough decision he was going to have to make since reconnecting with the fox. Victor waited patiently, knowing this wasn't something easy for his friend to decide. He picked out the small flask in his pocket and was about to have a sip when Cedric suddenly answered, "All right, I'll join the group." "Are you absolutely sure?" Cedric grinned and nodded firmly. "This is the right thing to do. I can feel it. And I've learned to trust my instincts." Victor held his friend's hands, and as he gazed into his eyes with the sweetest smile on his face, "You impress me more and more each passing day, Cedric." The coyote was too flustered to think of a half-decent reply and simply kept on grinning. There was just something about Victor that made him feel special. Anytime the fox complimented him, it was as if Cedric had been set ablaze with newfound energy and confidence. It wasn't just any old feeling. This was different, something he'd never felt before. Could it be... Yes, this was it, he thought. He was falling in love with this fox. "However, there's one more detail you should be well aware of. You don't just become a member of the masquerade by doing nothing. You will have to pass our very own initiation test, much like I had 2 years ago." Cedric felt a wave of anxiety hit him, as he pictured everything going wrong at the mere thought of a test. For many years growing up, he hadn't had to worry about these, having received a private education under the supervision of a grumpy old badger, Mr. Farley. Though Farley was a strict teacher, he'd never subjected Cedric to any particularly demanding tests. However, when the coyote was 15, he joined a group of other children from noble families at his parents' behest, supervised by a new teacher. The tests he'd had to take from that moment onward were much more demanding, and the punishments that followed unsatisfying results harsher than any he'd experienced previously. Since then, he'd never been able to shake off that feeling of dread that preceded being judged. I hope I'm able to." Victor patted him on the back. Come, come, judging by what I've witnessed over the last few days, there's no reason why you should manage it. The coyote gave a faint smile, but still not completely at ease after this latest revelation. It's made up of a few separate trials to test your various skills. Are you still sure you want to go through with this? Cedric took a deep breath before replying. There was a chance he might mess this all up and look like a complete fool. On the other hand, he had nothing whatsoever to lose. Yes, I am. Victor pulled his friend upwards and gave him an affectionate hug. After letting go and taking a few steps outside the tent, he spoke loudly, demanding the group's attention. Cedric has already decided to join us. We might have a future seventh member on our hands. He proudly glanced at his friend. Which means you'll be facing the first trial now. The other bandits appeared a couple seconds later, having heard Victor's announcement. Dion, Blake, and Ridley were the first to walk up to the two. The hyena cleared his throat and raised a hand to his mouth, waiting until everyone was completely silent before speaking. Comrades, our friend Cedric has declared he wants to undergo our 4 trials with the objective of assuming membership status in our fellowship. The others cheered as the coyote's anxiety began to rise, wondering what on earth he was supposed to do during these so-called trials. Just how demanding were they going to be? Were the bandits referring to physical trials? It's like, no. Alrighty, here we go. Okay. If Dion was involved, they certainly would be physical. Possibly the hyenas can't be homage to the ancient Greek Olympics or a reference to Hercules and his various tasks. But Cedric was no Hercules. He wasn't athletic in the slightest, with the single fact he'd always been a fast runner as the only exception. Victor had said these trials were meant to test his skills, but a bandit needs to be more than simply fast on their feet. Cedric's attention shifted back to the hyena's impressive and long-winded speech, which seemed to be coming to an end. Thus, we all wish you good luck, Cedric. May fortune smile upon your brave soul. So, without further ado, your first trial begins now. As he finished, Dion took a few steps back so as to give Cedric more space. Blake then handed him a large and shiny bottle of red wine. The coyote was rather puzzled, but took it without asking questions. Though he didn't want to admit it, he was still a little intimidated by the Doberman. The ever-confident Ridley stepped up to Cedric and warmly rested a hand on his shoulder. Blake and I will be assisting you for this first test, which we have recently nicknamed the Trial of Guile. A fucking daft name which Ridley insists is extremely funny. Watch it, you, or I'll tell them it was your idea. You wouldn't dare, and it fucking wasn't. I thought part of being a bandit meant you're supposed to be good at lying, punk. Quit being such a tease and just suck me off. I wouldn't give you the satisfaction. The following look the two gave each other seemed to betray a little more than just friendly rivalry. Now, follow us, everyone. Let's head to where this trial will unfold. Okay. The whole group marched along with them, soon reaching a spot in the clearing that had been filled with scattered logs and tree trunks of all shapes and sizes. Blake and Ridley had lit a couple of torches to better illuminate the scene. Now, all you have to do to pass this test is jump over the small logs and climb over the tree trunks without losing your balance and falling over. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Blake was right. This didn't sound too difficult, which worried Cedric even more. But what does this bottle of wine have to do with this trial? Ah, now comes the fun part. The others laughed loudly as Blake replied with a mischievous grin on his face. You'll not be setting foot in this obstacle course until you're completely shit-faced. As drunk as you can possibly get. What? The only reason you're not getting a bottle of rum is because they don't want to risk killing you. It's for your own good. You won't be worth much as a bandit when you're dead. You can't be serious. Drink up, lad. 3 cheers for Cedric. Huzzah! Cedric tried to breathe slowly as he felt his heart beating faster each passing second. No, there was no way he was going to go through with this. It was madness. It's like, no. Yeah. Was there even any meaning to it beyond being some sort of sick practical joke? Every job has its risks, and we all accept that fact every time we take one on. Without warning, Dion's words from earlier rang out clearly in the coyote's mind. Something like this would probably never happen to him again. If he was setting himself up for failure, then the best thing he could do was fail trying. Seize the moment, Cedric, you fool! Very well. If this was what he had to do, then so be it. He raised the bottle to his mouth and began to swallow its contents. Not even a couple minutes later, the alcohol's effects began to make itself known. Everything around the coyote grew blurry as he felt his head begin to sway to one side. He spat out some of the liquid as he failed to suppress a cough. Easy, Cedric. No need to down it too speedily. Take your time. Cedric triumphantly threw the empty bottle to his feet, but gave a look of dismay as Blake instantly handed him another. Keep it up, lad. Ooh, excuse me. One more at least. We're not taking any chances. The coyote shook his head. He wasn't going to keep drinking for anything in the world. I don't think I can do this. Noticing his friend's unease, Victor leant in and whispered so that only Cedric could hear. Would a kiss after you've completed the obstacle course motivate you? The coyote wasn't even sure if he'd actually heard that right or if it was just some sort of drunken vision. Either way, it was enough for him to resume his drinking, barely resisting the urge to topple over as he raised his head again. Now even trying to make out what anyone else was saying had become a gargantuan challenge. He could feel his mind pulsating as his vision blurred even further. After the second bottle had been emptied and clumsily thrown to the ground, he thought he heard Ridley say something about making his way through the obstacle course. He didn't wait to find out. Without a moment's hesitation, he stumbled toward the first couple of logs that had been laid on the grass. It was now or never. The initial jump seemed unnervingly easy. Getting confident was useless, though, as Cedric could already see some much larger logs a few feet away. After jumping a third and fourth one, the coyote lost his balance and barely saved himself from toppling over. He thought he saw Blake rushing up to make sure he hadn't actually fallen to the ground. He sure as hell wasn't going to give the Doberman the satisfaction, and plowed on, determined to reach the first tree trunk. Once there, he sat down, getting ready to move his right leg over it. As he did so, he felt the world tilt to one side as he worriedly held onto the bowl for dear life. He caught a glimpse of the other bandits, and was sure he saw Victor raising an arm to cheer him on. They all couldn't have been standing more than 30 feet from where he was, yet to the inebriated coyote they appeared to be miles away. Letting his left leg slide down the side of the trunk, he carefully stood up again. He seemed to be getting the hang of this. He immediately regretted that, though, as each step toward the next couple of logs grew unfathomably heavier. After yet more leaping, he tried to reach what he could have sworn was the 10th tree trunk he'd have to climb over. A glimmer of hope filled him as he could now see the others in the distance. He was nearing the end of the obstacle course. Then everything went wrong. He lost his balance and fell forward, holding out his arms. With a loud thud, he hit the next tree trunk, digging his claws into the bark and preventing himself from slipping off. He could hear the group shouting and getting heated. He's down! No, he's not! Wrong voice for Hollis. Alright. No, he's not. Keep going, Cedric. You can do it! A large shadow covered the damp ground as Blake inspected him a second time, snorting loudly as he did. You barely saved yourself, kid. Shut it, all of you. He's not down yet. He's still holding on. Cedric used all the strength that he had left in his arms to lift himself up. He felt like he was about to be sick. He miraculously made it over the tree trunks and wobbled toward the following one. This was it, the last of all of them. He was ever so close to victory. He put both his arms up in front of him like before, attempting not to lose his balance. But before he could properly sit down and begin to lift his legs, he gave in to his bodily urges and threw up. Wiping the sick from his mouth, he sat down firmly and slowly lifted a weak leg right over the last and largest tree trunk. In the meantime, his left leg had almost gone numb, and when the time came to move it, Cedric could feel just how heavy it had become. Once he'd felt his left foot touch the ground, he paused for a brief second as his victory began to slowly sink in. He'd won! He did it! He could hardly make any of the others out, let alone understand what they were saying. He jumped up and rushed toward them triumphantly, noticing a shape clearly resembling Victor standing to his right. Recalling the fox's words from earlier, he inadvertently blurted out his inner thoughts. You owe me that kiss fee! He finally lost his balance completely and fell face flat onto the damp grass as everything instantly turned pitch black. Alright, good place to pause it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right there. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. Before I go, I'm going to give a quick shout out to our lovely bonds tier patrons. Thank you all for what I do for the channel. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you to our silver tier patron, Cade Silver, and thank you going above and beyond. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks to our 3 gold tier patrons, Zeke, Toby, and Blue Wolf Alpha. Y'all are awesome. We love you. Thank you for subbing to Ultimate Tier. Anyway, if y'all want to get your names in the credits, get access to all of our Not Safe for Work contents as little as $5. Our new Not Safe for Work video up on A Place to Call Home is up, y'all. Subscribe now to get access to it. Anyway, I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!